Joe Rogan has announced that he's tested positive for COVID-19. Rogan took to Instagram to tell his followers that he's treating his illness with a variety of treatments, including a controversial drug known amongst farmers and vets for treating parasites in livestock. In humans, the medication is used to treat certain parasitic roundworm infections such as lice and other skin conditions. Here's what Rogan had to say.
Got tested, and turns out I got COVID. So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone, everything.
If you notice that we're trying not to say the name of the controversial drug, it's because YouTube's COVID medical misinformation policy strictly disallows content that in any way, quote, recommends this drug for the treatment of COVID-19.
Yeah, so we have to be careful on how we approach this segment, unfortunately, because this is the way it is when it comes to the community guidelines on YouTube. I think The Hill has a bit more protection being a legitimate, legacy news organization than those of us who are independent on YouTube. But my beef about this entire reporting on, now that Joe Rogan has COVID, he's been known as being, they call him an anti-vaxxer. He's been somebody who's been critical about mass vaccination campaigns. And so he said he feels great after 3 days, throwing the kitchen sink at it. One of my big beefs about this reporting is we're just seeing, like, NBC News puts out there saying Joe Rogan says he has COVID, took widely discredited horse drug, and then the drug. And NPR says the same thing. And it's like, that is such inaccurate, dishonest reporting. Did he take the horse version of this? I mean, do we know, did he go and get the gel from Amazon or the vet clinic? And did he take the gel and stick it in the spoon and take the horse version of this medication? I mean, this is a medication that is prescribed for humans. In Africa, it's widely used. It's even over the counter in some countries in Africa for humans. I'm just really upset about the dishonest reporting about it, calling it a horse drug when that is not what it is. I mean, yes, it's used also in that sense, but not all the time. But it's also for humans. There
are, however, feed stores all over the country that are having to lock it up and are seeing a run on it. So I suspect that he did not go down to a feed store and raid that supply. I bet my life that he did not do that. And there, like you said, there is an FDA-approved use, and as long as you're taking the kind of FDA-approved dosages, there's no evidence that it's going to be beneficial to you, but it's probably not going to be terribly harmful to you either, since it is FDA-approved for ringworm or other types of parasites. If you don't have parasites, not a whole lot of point in taking it.
There's a lot of studies. I mean, there's studies on both sides of this. We're not allowed to really talk about it. Well,
the biggest study was retracted for having engaged in fraud and plagiarism.
No, there was a new study that came out recently from Israel. It was a gold standard. They did double-blind, placebo, the whole 9 yards, and it came out to be highly effective. Well, so there's doctors.
Yeah, this reminds me of another drug that I don't think I can mention on this show that was controversial as a potential therapeutic early in COVID. And I remember at the time, the former Trump White House, we got a lot of criticism for talking about it as a potential therapeutic. And I'm someone who, in my time in government, my time serving with the Department of Defense, I had taken that drug probably half a dozen times. If you've traveled to Africa, if you've traveled to Southeast Asia, it's an anti-malarial that is commonly prescribed. The worst side effect I experience is you get some weird dreams. But the point being this is, if something has safely existed on the market for decades, perhaps prescribed for different uses, if people in consultation with their doctors want to try it as a therapeutic, they have every right to. On the flip side, there is this responsibility I think you have to the public to make sure that you're telling the truth about it and being very clear about the use and what kind. Because again, this horse tranquilizer versus what's been on the market and you could get over the counter, the anti-malarial I took versus I think people were drinking like something you put in a fish tank. These are different things, and we've got to very much educate the public and not assume that they know better, because we still hear these crazy cases.
And Kim, can you help me walk through the thinking of people who are like, I'm not going to put this vaccine in my arm because it's untested, and or they have all of these all these concerns about the vaccine. But then somebody's like, yeah, take this hydroxy thing, or take this parasite thing, and people are like, yes, that is it. That is what we've been waiting for. Like, why is it that is okay, and that they understand that to be something beneficial, but not the vaccine? And also, when did we jump from hydro to this one? Like,
well, this one actually, yeah. So this particular drug that Joe Rogan is talking about, this one was actually, initial studies came out from Australia early on in the pandemic showing that it had some benefits in a lab. So they'd found some evidence of it, and then it kind of increased, and doctors started experimenting with it a bit and seeing how it works, and they found that it seemed to. And then there was numerous studies done, and then the criticisms of the studies were they weren't the gold standard, and then there were some gold standard ones that came out still showing it, and it kind of gone, but it got guilt by association through the other drug, being kind of in that same category. But as far as people, wanting to try this versus the vaccine, that comes to long-term side effects. People know that these drugs have been, like you mentioned, out there in circulation for decades. We do know the safety profile of these drugs for numerous different groups of people, pregnant women, children, adults. Like, we know the long-term safety side effects, or the safety profiles. We know that 14 people, I think, in total have ever died from taking the one that Joe Rogan was talking about. I think that's the hesitation. One
thing I caught, though, is he mentioned monoclonal antibodies, which were approved under the Trump administration for emergency use as a therapeutic. So it's still, to Ryan's point, it does fall into that same category of, so why do you trust this, but you don't trust the vaccine? That's just something intellectually I've been trying to wrap my head around, and I'm curious to understand better.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think the people that are talking about these prophylactic treatments are also talking about the monoclonal antibodies. I don't think they're in the same. They're not in the same conversation.
Tomorrow on Rising, Glenn Greenwald joins us to discuss his latest Substack on efforts by the Obama administration to malign Edward Snowden. Plus, Team Rising discusses Trump's possible run for president in 2024.
We'll see you then.